In 1978, a homemade bomb exploded at the University of Chicago, which later became a 20-year-long murder pursuit story. The criminal had himself a hell of a ride, and is still the subject of research by some criminal psychology experts. He has troubled the FBI for more than 10 years, so his name was also written into the famous criminal file by the FBI, which became a lingering section of the FBI history. His name is Ted Kaczynski. This is the former Ted Kaczynski. To be exact, it should be called Dr. Ted Kaczynski. Hello everyone, let's investigate here. Today we will be talking about the criminal with the highest IQ. Isn't it hard to imagine that such a well-dressed educator turned into a slamming bummer? What did he go through? And what made him the ruthless bummer he is today? Let's first discover who Ted is and where he is from. Ted Kaczynski was born on May 22, 1942, a second-generation Polish immigrant. Him and his family lived in Chicago. He was raised in an ordinary family, and his parents were both middle-class workers. This normal family soon became special because of him. The kid is just too smart, a plain genius. His IQ was 168 when he was in 5th grade. A normal person has IQ from 100 to 120. Even Einstein only had IQ of 160. He applied for full scholarship at the age of 16 and entered Harvard University. 4 years later, at the age of 20, Ted received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Harvard. After graduating from Harvard, Ted received a scholarship from the University of Michigan. He used only a few months to solve a problem which his professor was unable to solve for the past decades. He received a master's degree and a doctorate degree in mathematics in 1964 and 1967 respectively. In 1967, he was a teaching assistant at the University of California, Berkeley, and became the youngest assistant professor of mathematics. At the University of Michigan, Ted specialized in complex analysis, especially geometric function theory, and his talent and effort impressed everyone there. In 1967, Ted's doctoral dissertation, Boundary Functions, won the Best Mathematical Dissertation Award in Michigan, and only 10 experts across the state can understand his thesis. Most of the professors at the university were unable to grasp the content, as it seems sophisticated. Ted was once regarded as a top expert about to enter the field of mathematical analysis. Ted's future is bright, and he can definitely be called a genius among the best. But the problem comes. Just like John Nash, who won the Nobel Prize for Nash equilibrium. John has always been troubled by mental disorders. Ted also suffered from withdrawn character. He doesn't like to associate with people. He likes to be alone, and his personality problems also affected his work, because he was not good at communicating with others. After only 2 years as a teaching assistant, Ted quit his promising job at Berkeley and left the field of mathematics. After resigning from Berkeley, Ted moved to his parents' home in Lombardy, Illinois. 2 years later, he moved to a cottage on the outskirts of Lincoln, Montana, where he can isolate himself and live far away from society. He lived in seclusion, basically no expenses, no electricity at home, occasionally go out to do some odd jobs to earn some pocket money. At the same time, he also learned a series of survival skills, such as farming and making bows and arrows. It seems that he wants to live a primitive life, a self-sufficient life. Here is an image of his cabin. As you can see, it's very simple and neat. Ted has changed from a mathematician to a person who escaped from the world and yearned for nature and peace. But the peace of life was broken shortly afterwards. In 1975, due to the nearby real estate development and some industrial projects, which destroyed the land where he built his cottage, it was impossible for him to live peacefully in nature. Ted was angry. In response, he launched a retaliatory activity. If you look at this alone, Ted may be a radical environmentalist, but in the mind of a genius, you never understand what he is thinking. When this genius from Harvard was angered, he chose ruthless revenge. In 1978, his first original homemade bomb exploded at the University of Chicago. Over the next 17 years, he mailed or personally delivered a series of increasingly complex bombs, killing 3 Americans and wounding 24 people. He threatened to blow up the flying passenger plane. He was called the Unabomber, which is a combined word of university, airline, and bomber. Each bomb, Ted will have 2 letters, FC, engraved on it, which is the abbreviation of Freedom Club. Ted has left a special mark on his criminal behavior. He deliberately left misleading clues in the bomb and took extra care when preparing to avoid leaving fingerprints. He knew exactly how to mislead the police on mistaken clues. He targeted well-known science and engineering universities, as he believed that the scholars here were advancing high technology. Above is where Ted Kaczynski sent the bombs. As you can see, the list concluded mostly schools, where a lot of top-rated professors in the States were conducting the research in the facilities. This is a challenge for the FBI. They spent nearly 2 decades searching for the Unabomber. In 1979, a special team led by the FBI was established, including ATF and the United States Postal Inspection Service, to investigate the Unabomber case. With more than 150 full-time investigators, analysts, and other personnel. In order to find clues, the research team conducted a forensic examination of the contents of the recovered bombs and studied the lives of the victims in details. However, the efforts from the FBI were useless. Ted is like a ghost, leaving no trace of evidence at all. He can use scrap materials that can be obtained anywhere to make bombs. Each bomb is made by hand, including the small parts inside the bomb. The rigor of the mathematician is vividly reflected in him. After making the bomb, he will use a vacuum cleaner to clean the scene, and then throw the garbage 100 miles away. A bomb is often done for 1 year. Although it is slow, it is absolutely meticulous. He will not easily reveal his identity. He lives in the remote woods without an accurate address, no electricity, no running water, no car, no credit card, completely isolated from the society. Few people knew him. The most important thing was that he had no wives nor children, so he didn't have any concerns and connections. Even his own family didn't know if he's alive or not, as if there was no such person in the world. In order to confuse the police, Ted can go to another state to find a bag of debris to wrap the bomb. He did this for more than 10 years. Criminologist Lee Chan-yu once said, "There has never been a perfect crime in the world. In terms of the tactics alone, Ted's crime was perfect, limited by the detection technology at the time. But the flaws in the case depend not only on the case, but also on the people behind the case." Perhaps it was because he was complacent about his perfect crime and played the FBI in his hands. Ted became more arrogant. In 1995, Ted sent a 35,000-word handwritten paper to the FBI, claiming to explain his motives and views on the sickness of this modern society. The FBI was mixed with joy and fear when they received the paper from Ted. This is the Unabomber they had been trying to catch for the past decades and was not able to find a clue at all, and now he showed up at the door by himself. The good news is that the bomber took the initiative to contact the FBI for the first time. This means that after more than 10 years, the closest opportunity to the criminal is coming. The bad news is that the article was too real and reflective of the current society that the director had to agree with Ted's point of view when he read it. It turns out that the one who has been behind all these bombing is such an intellectual. To summarize Ted's paper, Ted attributed to the Industrial Revolution to the disaster of human development. Technology has a very destructive effect on social stability. This makes life unpleasant and causes people psychological pain. The development of technology in the future will be applied to human genetic engineering. Human beings will be adjusted, selected, eliminated to meet the needs of the social system. On the other hand, human freedom is also a natural product of resistance to the industrial society. If the industrial system can successfully obtain human control, then it has the value of survival. Otherwise, the entire system will collapse. Looking at this paper, the director thought about it for a long time. If he published it, it may cause a blind worship of Ted's in the society, because the article is written so well. If it is not posted, then this thread may be lost. After many internal discussions within the FBI, they finally made up their minds to publish it. So they contacted multiple media outlets and published an academic article on the mystery bomber. After the Washington Post and the New York Times published the papers, things turned around. Ted's brother recognized that the writing style of this article was his brother's, and he provided the letter written by Ted to the FBI. The FBI determined through language analysis that the author of these letters and the criminal who published the paper were almost the same person. After a large number of detailed investigations, combined with the bombing and Ted's trajectory, the FBI finally determined that Ted was the bomber himself. On April 3rd, 1996, the FBI arrested Ted and searched his cabin. They found a lot of bomb components and debris, 40,000 handwritten pages, including experimental data on bomb manufacturing records, and also a bomb ready to be mailed. In January 1998, Ted pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment. The FBI's more than 2 decades of pursuit of the murderer finally came to an end. After his arrest, Ted said the following to the media: "It's kind of a rolling country, not flat, and when you get to the edge of it, you find these ravines that cut very steeply into cliff-like drop-offs, and there was even a waterfall there. It was about a 2-day hike from my cabin. That was the best spot until the summer of 1983. That summer there were too many people around my cabin, so I decided I needed some peace and space. I went back to the plateau, and when I got there, I found they had put a road right in the middle of it. You just can't imagine how upset I was. It was from that point on, I decided that rather than trying to acquire more wilderness skills, I would work on getting back at the system." After reading Ted's paper, he did have many valuable claims. Technology definitely made everything more convenient and easier for us, but it is also harmful at the same time, as we grew more dependent on it. Ted wished to live a primitive life, where he won't be bothered by others. We lived in a world that is constantly changing, and most people became adaptive to the new environment through time. But Ted is one of those people who refuse to accept any changes and wish that things will stay the same. Ted is 78-year-old and currently at the ADX Florence, in Florence, Colorado, serving his 8 life sentences. It is the only current supermax prison in the United States, which is designed to hold the nation's most dangerous criminals.